The Mental Wind Down with Stu and Henriette, a show talking all things mental health.
Hello and welcome to episode 4 of The Mental Wind Down. I hope you enjoyed them so far. This week we have, bit excited, we have Charlie Hodgson, former England international rugby. I won't go too much into him because we'll be talking about that in the next 5 minutes or so. So what's new this week? It's a bit like Groundhog Day, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, you're working, but it's Groundhog Day for me.
I'm busy working. I got a lot on. It's like up a gear. However, one of my kids have gone back to school, so it's just one to sit and try and do things with, and still.
And he's enjoying it. Shock horror.
Yeah, he's actually enjoying school. Yeah. He is.
I've been on my bike once.
Yeah.
On Monday, actually, after we did the video. Going to the Peak District again next week. What else have we done? I've kicked off the pedal the Premiership 2. So myself and John, we're going to be cycling around the Premiership rugby clubs again next year with support driver, chef, laundrette. What else can we call you? Photographer. PR.
Sort out all your interviews.
Yeah. So we're doing that again next year, April, May. So we did a promo video and been speaking to some people, and it's going live with one of the charities this weekend, which is quite exciting. So a lot more time on the bike. So should we leave them to the interview?
Yeah.
Cool. So we'll go on to the interview, and then we'll see you afterwards, and we'll give us a little bit of time to confirm who we got next week. Yeah. Cool. See you in a bit.
Welcome to podcast number 4 with the Mental Wind Down. I can't even say that. Mental Wind Down. I was going to introduce you, Charlie, and when Stu got really excited about our guest this week, I must honestly admit that I didn't know who you were, so I had to Google you. So I do apologise.
No, it's absolutely fine. Don't worry.
But now I've learned a lot about you, and Stu is very eager to ask you all the rugby questions, and then I will ask you a bit more about your after rugby life afterwards.
Yeah,
cool.
Yeah. But, so how you been coping during lockdowns? Has been different? So just the one question I've got: homeschooling your 5 kids or an international game of rugby?
I think I'd definitely take the international game of rugby, to be honest. No. Thanks for my wife as a saint. She's brilliant with the kids. We've got our oldest 2 actually quite self-motivated, so they're pretty good, and the others just need a little bit of pushing. I'm the youngest 5-year-old twins, so they need help and getting away from their Lego. But on the whole, they're all good. So yeah, it's been a good time actually. To be honest, I mean, work has been hit because of what I do. I'm naturally. I suppose a lot of the work I've been doing is face to face. Of course, that is a difference. But every cloud and all that, and you kind of get the chance to be with the family much more than I ever have. Yeah. In the time, so it's good. It's been good, and plus the weather's been amazing. So yeah, can't complain.
Yeah, we have a show garden now because I've just been DIYing for the last 9 weeks. Yeah, so we go on to your rugby career. Like Henry said, I'm a massive rugby fan. Played from the age of 6, domestically in the Navy and stuff. But so if you do know rugby, everybody knows your name, Charlie Hodgson, because you just got to look at the Premiership stats really. And from what I looked at, there's 6 league tables on there, and you appear in 5 of them, and you're number 1 in 4 of them. Which is amazing for a career. So we just want to talk about the pressure of not only being a professional rugby player at the level that you played, but as a number 10 as well. Because I see number 10 as probably the hardest position on the pitch with decision makings and being that, I suppose, that pivot between the forwards and the backs.
Yeah.
So is it something you learn, or is it something that comes natural, be able to take that pressure on?
Well, you're definitely in the firing line, and I think there's a little bit of both actually. you could never throw somebody into that position at 18, 19 years old and say move I don't know. Well, you wouldn't move a second row. That'd be ridiculous. But asking people to make that change when there are a lot of little intricacies that go with the game and an understanding of the game is quite hard. And I mean, from a very young age, from the age of probably 10, 11, I started playing fly half with a little bit of centre, but I was a fly half, and it's just part and parcel of just learning the game as you go. Of course, some of it is down to talent and natural talent that you have and have this ability. For me, was being able to read the game and to understand what was going on, even from a younger age. So it's kind of just grown with me. And as I got more interested in the game as a teenager and really started to study a little more, it helped me in my development. And it also actually watching rugby league as well, which I'm Northern, so I've watched rugby league but played Union. So seeing what goes on in that game and how that game works actually gives me another appreciation for what I should and shouldn't be doing, if that makes sense. So yes, definitely learnt behaviour. And of course, the more situations you get thrown into, the more you learn about yourself and you learn how you deal with them.
Yeah, and is it something you ever get used to? Say, for instance, Twickenham, 70th minute, you've got a penalty past the 22. That pressure there of 80,000 people looking at you, and if it is a match-winning kick, is that something you ever get used to?
I don't think you do, actually. I think the pressure always is there. Do you ever learn to deal with it? I suppose you do. I mean, each situation is difficult, and I think if I look back to the start of my professional career, start of my international career, I mean, I was capped the week of my 21st birthday. So was I mentally ready? I'm not really sure I was. It's like throwing a 20-21-year-old into a leadership position within a business. How many times is that ever going to happen? And from a sporting point of view, I came into this England squad, which was full of like household names: Martin Johnson, Matt Dawson, Lawrence Dallaglio, Jason Robinson, Will Greenwood, Johnny Wilkinson. I mean, you could keep talking about all these people. Everybody knows all these World Cup winners. So for me to be in a position where I had to sort of lead these guys around the field was really daunting. And then obviously the kicking side, and then also sort of following in the footsteps of somebody who's an absolute legend of kicking the ball is Johnny. Then you're going, that's added pressure as well. So
yeah,
I think the way you deal with it is obviously one through experience, but a lot of it comes down to practice and learning from those mistakes, but really, really knowing yourself and what you are capable of and how you act and how you perform and what your technique looks like. So you can actually perform it under the highest amount of pressure. So when you've got all this distraction that's going on around you, you're in a really good frame of mind because you really understand what you're doing with yourself and you really understand how you're going to kick the ball. So nothing really takes over.
Yeah, because Johnny has been open about mental health and how it could be detrimental because he was a perfectionist. So I think there was if he took 10 kicks in practice, if he missed the 8th, he would start all over again. Can it sort of overwhelm you with having to be that perfect? Because physically, it's probably one of the hardest games in the world to play. Mentally, is it the same as well, do you think?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, from a kicking point of view, it's the only individual skill you've got in what is a team sport. So yeah. It fully resonates with me. I'll tell you a little story. I played against Australia back in 2004. Didn't really kick very well. Was fairly honest with my appraisal off the back of that game with the media, and then all of a sudden this whole thing just erupted that I choked, I bottled, I should never play for England again, and this sort of scrutiny came with that. And actually at the time, because I was relatively inexperienced from an international point of view, I really struggled to deal with it. It impacted me personally, impacted me professionally, had an impact on relationships with friends and girlfriend who's now my wife, thankfully. But like there's this, it wasn't just the performance on the field itself which had an impact. It was also away from the rugby field, which, like I said, I got capped probably too early, and therefore I wasn't able to mentally I wasn't able to deal with it. If I'd been capped at 28, 29, 30 years old, I'd have been in a much stronger position to be able to cope with it. I'm sure of it.
And good that you did cope with it. From saying with the stats, you become the leading point scorer in the Premiership of all time. So it was sort of a learning curve. And would you say you were resilient to it, or you just take yourself away from it, or did you just work with it to be able to understand, reflect on that?
Yeah, I think a lot of it was working with it, and this idea of being in control of what I could control. There's
control the controllables.
Yeah, I mean, everybody talks about it, but for me, it was a real sort of cornerstone to what I did when it came to kicking. I knew there was so much distraction. I knew I was going to get some stick from the opposition. I knew I was going to get some stick from the crowd. I knew there was going to be some sort of press attention if I didn't go well. So for me, it was like really understanding my own ability and actually understanding my technique to the nth degree, so that under the highest pressure, I could really focus on it and know exactly what I was doing. And in a game situation, I could self-correct. There's no way I was going to have the help of a coach at that time to tell me what I should or shouldn't be doing. It was up to me to work it out. So, and the only way you do that is by taking control of what you know, what you understand, and forgetting everything else.
A player's mental health now is really prevalent in today's game, with the amount of talk and the charities like Loose Heads and stuff like that working with it. Was it something that you could talk about, your mental resilience or mental health, back in the day in the early 2000s in that professional era?
No, I mean, rugby, as you know, is very, it's obviously male dominated, and it's this sort of macho environment. And certainly back in the day, you don't ever want to speak about it. And for fear of guess letting your teammates down, but also the impact that it has on selection from coaches. So if you speak to a coach, what sort of impact's that going to have on selection moving forward? So you're almost forced to bottle it up and try and deal with it internally. I'm quite introverted by nature, so moments like that, the situation that I talked about before, they almost caused me to be even more introverted and go into myself even more, and I would almost didn't want to speak about it at all. So I look back now and think if only I'd really spoken out about it, I probably would have been in a better position to do something about it. And thankfully now there's much more support that's out there more than ever, and it's still getting better. Like anything, it could be better. I mean, we've got some great support in the Players Association and the things that are being done for people who transition out of sport and the military, for example. But like anything, it can be done much better.
Yeah, the go on to like the injuries. Like with your injuries, they sort of fell at a really bad time for selection for the two World Cups in 2003 and 2007. How hard is it to take that on board, that you were part of the Grand Slam winning England team in 2003, Six Nations, and then obviously the World Cup was later on that year, but you injured yourself. How hard is it to accept that, but then be able to bounce back and play for the club within X amount of time?
It is difficult. Like anything, I don't think it really matters necessarily on the timing. My timing was just bad luck regarding being injured for England and then missing out on potential selection for those World Cups. But because it's your job, because it's what you love doing, because it's your passion, regardless of whether it's an injury of a week or 2 months, 8 months, 9 months, whatever it may be, it's impacting on what you love doing most. And for me, that was being outside on the field with my mates playing the game. Yeah,
and yeah, brilliant. And the last sort of, I've got a couple more questions. The last sort of question for me is the transition from being a professional rugby player to basically a civilian, having to restart your life again, maybe in a different job if you don't stay within the rugby environment. How hard is it for a professional rugby player? Because we've interviewed Danny Sculthorpe, rugby league player, and he unfortunately got an injury, then became very ill with a virus in hospital, and he'll just have to sign a 6-figure contract. And they more or less gave him a letter to say, see you later, we're not having you anymore.
Wow.
And he's open by saying he sat in a car and was about to take his own life because he just could not understand. He thought he'd failed everybody. How hard is it?
It is hard. I mean, you are very much institutionalized with what you do. It's like you're still at school. I'm told what to do, where to be, what to wear, what to eat. All of these things are going on. So to get into the real world, and you start having to think about managing your own diary and what that looks like and what your day looks like and setting up meetings with different people. I mean, that is a shock in itself. But then you also go from being known as somebody, Charlie as the rugby player, to being just Charlie as somebody, as the person. And that change of identity is not only has an impact personally, but also extended to family. They have to sort of review who they're looking at, not just the person who used to play rugby or sport.
Yeah.
but also the people that you reach out to. If I was a rugby player, or when I was a rugby player, and you reach out to somebody, you've pretty much got a 100% chance of them getting back to you straight away with a yeah, would love to meet up, no problem at all. You do that now, and you're in a different guise, and actually you find that it's not quite the same. And sometimes you're banging on the door a few more times than you would be if you're just playing rugby. So there's a big shock to the system, I must admit, and it takes a while to adapt. I'm still adapting now. I'm 3 years into retirement. I still do miss it because I miss that interaction with my mates. I miss the competition element. I miss that feeling of achievement and even loss at the end of games. All of those things that are rolled into one. So thankfully, there's support out there for players much better than it ever used to be.
But I think players now are actually doing resettlement while playing, aren't they? So they're actually thinking about their next career. Whereas I suppose as a young lad, when you're 21, 22, 23, you never think about having to do anything else in 10 years' time. You're just enjoying the moment. But it's really...
It's the last thing. Yeah, it's the last thing you want to think about as a 21, 22-year-old to go, right, you need to start thinking about what you might do at 35. They're going, what? I want to enjoy this, and I want to play the PlayStation and just go and have a coffee. I mean, I look back and think the amount of time I wait when I was at Sale in my early days, I wasted so much time in the Trafford Centre with my mates having a coffee, just talking shit, basically.
Last question then from me before we go on to Henriette's time is, everyone has a sporting hero, like going up with rugby. Obviously, you had a rugby icon. Now, who was your hero to, like, sort of take stuff from and play with?
It's quite hard, actually. Like, I think I grew up in the early. Well, I was born in 1980, so that was a time in the 80s.
Great year, Charlie. Great year.
The time of certainly the 80s and late 80s and 90s of Liverpool Football Club doing really well, and John Barnes in his Crown Paints Liverpool football kit. So he used to be somebody I used to idolise as a kid, but that was obviously football. And rugby for me was a hobby. It wasn't necessarily something that I thought I was ever going to be professional at initially. But when I went on, having watched Jason Robinson, for example, when he was playing for Wigan, and then suddenly I'm in the same team as him at Sale, I was like, Jesus Christ, what's happening here? This is unbelievable. Like a real shift in, just real strange situation. But to play in the same team as him was incredible.
He completely changed Union as well, didn't he? When he transferred over to League, in the sense that no one knew how to play against him.
Yeah, I remember watching one game. Well, I say watching. I was playing in it, but like I remember watching Jason just tear apart London Irish. For some reason, they kept kicking the ball to him, thinking it would be a good idea, and he just absolutely destroyed them. He just kept running back and running through everybody. I was like, "This is great to watch. I'm loving this. This is brilliant." I was in the same team.
You spent quite a lot of time with him at Sale, didn't you?
Yeah, until he retired. When did he retire? 2006, 7, maybe something like that. So, oh, maybe after. No, it's 2008, maybe a bit later because he played in the World Cup in 2007. So, yeah, so about 6, 7, 8 years with him. So brilliant, brilliant guy, brilliant player, just an amazing talent to be around.
Yeah, so that's my sort of fan moment out of the way now, Charlie. All right, I'm just gonna sit back and reflect while Henry your other stuff.
I know that you transitioned your job quite well, so you work more now with workplaces and for stress and coaching and self-development and things like that. How tell us a little bit about what you do now as the new Charlie Hodgson.
Okay, well, it's taken me a while to get here, if I'm honest. I'll give you a very quick story, but I spent the first 12 months after retirement at Saracens doing some scouting recruitment. It wasn't a role that I really enjoyed too much, but one thing I did enjoy as a player was coaching and mentoring, certainly as a senior player, helping the younger guys come through and develop. I also knew that I didn't want to become a professional rugby coach full-time because I know you are very much married to the job. It's 24/7, 48 weeks of the year, and the chances of you seeing your family are very slim. And so, well, obviously you do see them, but it's just a different environment to being a player. As a player, you can kind of walk away for days off and rest and recover, but coaches are still doing their thing. So next best thing for me was going into the business world, but taking my experience of sport and using that to help others. Now, leadership coaching space, executive coaching space within business is such a saturated market. There are loads of people doing it. And so it's taken me a while to really find, I suppose, my niche. And although I've played in different clubs, worked with different cultures, different managers, different coaches, my main takeaway was around managing pressure, managing stress for performance. And so for people who find the struggles of day-to-day work difficult, whether that's deadlines, workload, dealing with other people, that confrontation side of things, the pressure and the stress that comes with that, I just basically help people unpick those pressure points that people are feeling, recognize what's holding them back so they can find a better level of performance and more energy and more clarity with what they're doing. And just using my experience from my career, really. So mixing in with a few coaching qualifications, having retired, and so that's kind of what I do.
And well, obviously now with before COVID, the pressures of work are obviously very high especially for certain industries like solicitors and certain GPs and that kind of thing. Now we're migrating back into work. What do you think the stress levels are going to be like? Obviously, there's been a huge stress level during COVID time for GPs and nurses and everything. Now, when we go back into work and all the markets open up more, where do you think the pitfalls are going to be?
It's really hard to say. I think it's understanding what works for some people and what doesn't. And I think some people have been forced into this remote working when perhaps they didn't want to be. So some leaders are going to have to look at it and go, well, what was it as effective as being in the office? Therefore, do we need an office? But also recognizing that people actually like going into the office and they like that social interaction with people. So there's a really fine balance. Some people actually don't want to be around others and they're quite happy to work at home. But some actually, now they've been at home for a long time, they're finding it difficult to, I suppose, compartmentalize work and home life and family life. I think everything becomes a little bit clouded. Everything just kind of merges together. And it's like, well, how do you really get the best? And I think people actually like that, not necessarily the commute itself, but the ability to go to work, to do what you need to do, and then to come home. And also that time that you may get from half an hour to an hour of commute when you're leaving work actually gives people that downtime that they perhaps need at the end of the day. When, like I say, if you don't have that and you're at home all the time, everything just becomes clouded and it becomes part of one. So it will be really difficult. Don't get me wrong. I don't really know what the answer is, and I think every single company is going to be going to have their own challenges. But certainly finding out from the workforce themselves about what will work and what doesn't is going to be the next step, isn't it? And finding out for themselves as to what they really want.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how people take to it when they're back in the offices, and whether there are any increases in stress levels or anxiety or mental health as well. Is the mental health worse when they come back to work, or is it going to be better? That's key, isn't it? Yeah. Sorry.
No, I was going to say. So I'm a licensed to deliver something called the First Beat assessment, which is a heart rate variability assessment measuring stress and anxiety and recovery levels. And First Beat themselves did an internal study of their people who are working at home now. And actually, one thing they found was, although people are sleeping more, which is brilliant for recovery, actually their levels of exercise and physical activity they're doing has just dropped dramatically, because it's this whole thing of clouded responsibility of work and home. And you kind of get out of bed, move to the kitchen, have some breakfast, sit down at your desk, kind of steps that people are doing a day has just dropped dramatically, because no longer making that effort to walk to the office or to walk to the station, to walk to the car, so things have changed, and how that will look, obviously coming out, will be different as well.
Yeah, because we're quite interested as well in the correlation between mentally being balanced and having exercise and healthy eating and good sleep. All those things contribute to a better mental health for anyone, really.
Yeah.
I think we can see that evident in the workplace as well. I mean, I know for sure that I don't even do the school runs, and my step count has gone way down. So it's going to be difficult to see. So with you then, when everything opens up and your work takes place again, what kind of workplaces do you think that would need you, for example, to go in and talk to them and help them out?
Wow. Do you know what? It's really hard to say, because I think everybody is being affected in some shape or form. probably stress levels and of what's come from the coronavirus and pressure is everywhere. So I'd like to say everybody's going to need my services, but I mean, it's people are also in that recovery stage where they're going, well, what's the most important thing we're going to invest our money into? Yeah. And it is somebody who specialises in managing pressure and managing stress the right thing that's going to help us build again or not? And if not, do we go somewhere else? So I think it's very hard to say who. Like I said, I'd like to say everybody, but you just never know, do you?
There has been a shift in using services like you, though, hasn't there, over the last few years? Whereas, like, say a salesman, for instance, when I first went to sales in a gym environment, it was just sell, sell, sell. If you didn't hit those targets, didn't matter if you were stressed or something else was going on. It was just see you later, mate.
Yeah.
And then you went on to your next job. Whereas now it's all about retaining your staff, isn't it? So using people like you to help the staff by being more successsul.
Yeah, I think there's a much more greater need to actually understand your workforce and a much deeper level to understand how you get the best out of them, and just to purely rely on facts and figures is kind of a worst case scenario. Because, like you said, what it used to be, and just saying see you later, walk out the door if you don't reach your sales target, that's a really difficult situation to be in. So if people do understand the well-being of their workforce and actually understand what motivates them, and two, how they're genuinely feeling from a day-to-day point of view, you can start to understand and plot mood and start to see whether that has an impact on their ability to perform at work and productivity, which is ultimately what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to get the best out of people. Yeah. And you are trying to unpick what's going on, because if something is going on, it is going to impact them, just like it did from a rugby point of view for me. I wasn't able to deal with pressure, and therefore had an impact on me on my life. And it's exactly the same for the people. If they've got something that's going on at home, which they don't feel like they can share with people at work, it's always going to have an impact. And if the more we can look after people, the better.
Yeah.
Completely. And I applaud for the stuff that you do, because I think it's so important within a workplace, especially how high energy and stressful workplaces are now. Because I think if you said to a company, I want to work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 9 times out of 10, they'll probably say yes, because they need goals to hit.
Yeah, I mean, it's this expectation, isn't it, that is placed on us, but also the expectation that we often place on ourselves. And this I certainly know from experience, this sort of almost seeking for perfection and wanting to keep achieving, and actually can be the worst thing for you. So until you can really understand yourself and really trust yourself that you're going to get things done at the right time, you're able to really sort of motor along and bounce along and find that level of performance at the right level for you, and not feel like you're always having to attain to somebody else.
Yeah.
I think that's very true. I think that's true for everybody in the whole life thing, whether you put pressure on yourself as a parent or in your job or for your friends and relationships. So yeah, that's a good way of ending, that everybody could look after their resilience.
We spoke before that we're so geared and brought up to making everybody else happy. You don't generally look after yourself and make yourself happy. It's always about making other people smile. So we do a fair bit of advocacy around that. That look after yourself.
That's it. If you're not in a good place, there's no way you can look after anybody else. So as selfish as it may seem, you sort yourself out first from a well-being point of view, so you're in a really strong state of mind to be able to look after others.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, thank you so much for having you on, mate. I just want to say thank you as well for our Pedal the Premiership last year, that you donated an England shirt for us, and we raised.
That's a pleasure.
I think we raised about £7,000 in the end.
Yeah, that's brilliant.
And even better news for you is that we're doing it again next year, so you'd have to get your bike out, mate. So
are you doing a similar route, or what are you going to do? What, is it different?
Yes, well, Newcastle have been promoted, so we've got an extra 200. So we're starting off in Exeter this year. So we're going to go Exeter into London, up to Newcastle, across to Sale, then back down, and we're finishing in Bristol on game day.
Wow. And when have you got the dates ready?
No, sort of March, April. So we're waiting for the fixtures to come out. Obviously, with COVID happening, we're not too sure when, what, why. But hopefully by like March, April next year, Easter sort of time, we'll be able to. Don't worry, mate. You'll get an invite.
Yeah, I would like to take part this time. I've got plenty of notice, and I'd like to take part.
That'd be brilliant. Well, last year we had Jimmy Hamilton. He's brilliant.
Yeah.
He's brilliant to sit behind and draft.
Yeah, exactly. You need somebody big to sit behind. You're fine.
Yeah.
Excellent. Well, thank you. We really appreciate your time and thank you for joining us. And I hope that you'll get lots of new contracts and lots of things happening in the workplace.
Thank you, guys. Really appreciate it. Thanks for having me on. You take care.
No
Cheers,
worries.
Charlie. Thank you.
Take care.
See you guys. Bye.
Well,
Yeah.
I'm just going to be smiling for the rest of the day.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. What a bloke. What a nice
Yeah,
bloke.
very nice man. Very
And
nice
an
man.
amazing rugby player.
Yeah, I'll have to YouTube a few videos. I didn't watch looking at him as a rugby player. I just looked at all his professional, as his workplace work.
Yeah.
Which obviously I was quite interested in as well with the work that I do.
Yeah, brilliant. And it's great that he's found a niche to take away that, what we just spoke about, the pressured arena that he was in constantly, to then being able to convert it to everyday life, because it is everyday life.
Yeah, it's like any job, isn't it?
Yeah, stand in the middle of Twickenham about to do a match-winning kick, or somebody trying to pick the best pack of tomatoes in Tesco's. It can have the same stress levels.
Absolutely.
Just completely on the person or what training or stuff you've done before.
Definitely.
So yeah, I hope you enjoyed that. I certainly did. Yeah. Had Charlie Hodgson on the sofa.
Not quite.
We had him on the sofa.
There you go.
Yeah, so thanks for listening to number 4.
Yeah.
Number 5 will be coming next week.
Yep.
Have we got someone?
Yeah. Hopefully we'll get it in for this week. A guy called Nicholas Giametta. He is very big in the workplace mental health, and he's been doing some fundraising as well lately during COVID. He's done loads of Zoom meetings in all different outfits.
I think we'll get on well.
I think you'll get on really well because you're quite a bit of a dresser-upper, so to speak.
Fancy dress guys, not the dresser-upper.
The fancy dresser.
Yeah.
And that's what he's done. So he's come up with different outfits and different backgrounds as well on his Zoom every single day. Very funny.
Maybe we could swap, because I've got about 18 fancy dress outfits upstairs.
Yeah, he's had some of yours. The Zumo one. He wore that one.
Oh, right,
the other
okay.
day. Yeah.
That'd be a different conversation, maybe.
But yeah. So we may have to do the Zoom dressed up. Who knows?
I want for that.
Yeah. There you go.
Well, yeah. Thank you very much, and we'll see you next week.
Yeah.
Take care, guys.
Bye.
See you later.
Follow the podcast on Spotify and Apple Podcast. Just search The Mental Wind Down. Listen anytime and anywhere.